Today I'm going to teach you step by step how to make this easy bunny spring wreath using the Dollar Tree Grapevine bunny frame. Welcome to Stillwater's Wreath Designs. Come on in.
Before we dive into our design today, friends, let me just take a quick moment to welcome anyone new here to the channel. Stillwater's Wreath Designs is all about step-by-step wreath and door swag tutorials. You'll find new tutorials uploading every single week. If you like that sort of thing, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button below and join us. For my friends who have been here on the channel for a while, thank you for coming back. I so appreciate you. You'll find a full materials list for you below in the description of this video so that you'll have everything you need to recreate this beauty. Of course, if you'd rather just purchase it, I'll leave a link for my Etsy shop below as well. Go ahead and plug in your hot glue gun and let's talk about what we're going to build today's design on. So this is actually the 26-inch bunny wreath frame that comes from the plus section of the Dollar Tree. It's got some chicken wire on the background here and a pretty decent little hanger. And so we're going to dress this guy up to make a super cute door hanger in about 15 minutes. So while our hot glue gun is heating up, guys, let me just show you the florals that we're going to use in today's creation. This bunch actually came from Hobby Lobby. Let's see. It's item number 1080175. It's just a single floral bush with lots of different shades of pink, orange, and yellow little flowers and variegated greenery. And so those colors are how I determined what ribbon to use. I've just grabbed 3 rolls of 1.5-inch wired ribbon that coordinate with our flowers. So let's scoot our bunny off to the side and make our bow. Generally, I make my bows by hand, but because I'm nursing an injury, we're going to use the bow dabra today. If you're not familiar with the bow dabra, it's just a tool to help you make bows. This is what it looks like. It's plastic. It's got a wand that runs down the center, also a center split for adding ribbon. I'm also going to grab a ruler, my pair of scissors, and a 6-inch clear zip tie. You could also use a pipe cleaner or floral wire if that's your preference. So we're going to start with our yellow 1.5-inch ribbon. And so we're going to measure out 8-inch tails. You can use your self-healing mat to measure that out or just a standard ruler. So I've identified that 8-inch mark. I'm pinching my ribbon. I'm going to give that a hard twist and run that right down the center of my bow dabra. And I want 4-inch loops, guys, so I'm going to actually measure out to the 8-inch mark. I'm going to pinch that ribbon, and then when I fold that over onto itself, it'll become a 4-inch loop. I'm going to give that a hard twist because we always want that pretty side up. We're going to measure out another 8 inches to give us that 4-inch loop. Give that ribbon a pinch. Run that down into our bow dabra, and if you want to double check your loops, guys, just to make sure they're the same size, you can fold them up onto themselves like so, and as long as they meet in the same spot approximately, your loops are good to go. And we'll measure out an 8-inch tail. Okay, for the next ribbon, I'm going to add the hot pink with Swiss polka dots, and I'm going to use my first ribbon as my guide. Guys, you're welcome to measure if that's easier for you. So we're going to continue with those 8-inch tails, but reduce our loops by about 1/2 inch or so for each ribbon stack. So we're doing the 2 loops and 2 tails again. As you can see, that's about 1/2 inch shorter. We'll go ahead and run that tail out so that it's basically as long as that previous tail and cut off that ribbon. I'm going to use my bow dabra arm just to press and condense down on that ribbon stack. Then we're going to move on to the orange with white polka dot. Again, approximately 8 inches worth of a tail. Hard twist so that pretty side is up. So you want that orange ribbon to, again, be about 1/2 inch shorter. Then our hot pink loops. And again, 2 loops and 2 tails. We'll run that tail out approximately the same length as the previous and cut that guy off. And we're going to with another layer of the Swiss polka dot. So we'll run out our approximate 8-inch tail. We're going to give that a hard twist so it's pretty side out. You can make these loops basically the same length as the orange. And again, about 1/4 inch smaller on those loops. So we've made those 2 loops and 2 tails of our Swiss polka dot again. We'll run those tails out at that same approximate 8-inch marker. And we're going to make a single loop with our yellow. So I'm going to make these tails about 2 inches or so shorter than all the other tails. So I've run the ribbon down. I'm going to make a single loop. And as you can see, that loop's probably 1.5 inches to 2 inches. Running that tail out at about 6 inches in length. And then that's it for our bow ribbon stack. So we'll take our bow dabber arm here. We're going to press down on this ribbon stack, really condense that together. You'll want to have your zip tie or floral wire or pipe cleaner handy so that we can secure our bow, and we're going to gently lift this guy up out of the bow dabber, keeping that stack nicely condensed, and then we'll secure our bow stack. You're going to want to pull that tight, and then trim off that excess bit of zip tie. Before we fluff out our bows, guys, I'm going to go ahead and trim my tails, and I'm going to just angle trim. You're welcome to dovetail if you prefer, and we're going to trim every single tail. And that we've got those ends all trimmed, I'm just going to pull all of my tails down, and we'll worry about the loops in just a short bit. So once you've got all of your tails going in the right direction, we're going to just do a quick rough fluff of our bow. And I always start at the bottom. First, I pull my loops where I want them. There's no right or wrong way to do this, guys. You're welcome to fluff your bow how you wish. So I'm just kind of making an X pattern here with those back 2 loops. I'm pulling an X with the next layer. And then we've got our little single loop in the middle. Once you've got your loops where you want them, just go ahead and open them up. So you're literally just making a circle. And not looking for perfection here, guys. We're going to fluff this guy out the way we want it. Once we get it into our door hanger, we just want an idea of what this beauty is going to look like, so that we can start positioning. All right, now that we've got the rough fluff done, let's bring our florals and our bunny to our work area. You're going to want this round hanger on the back side of your bunny wreath so that you or your customer hang that up on the door. So now it's time to prepare our florals. We're just going to cut off this price tag here, and I'm going to use this entire bush. There are 11 stems on our bush. And so what I'm going to do, guys, is just trim this, each and every stem off the bush, about 2 inches or so below where the greenery ends. It's a heavy duty floral. We'll have to use our big cutters for this guy. All right, so we've got 11 stems here. And what my vision is for this design is to add our bow off to the side of our bunny's neck here and have a floral spray on either side. And so what I'm going to do is just lay my florals back and forth just like this, so that that 2-inch stem that we cut kind of meets in the middle. And remember, we had 11 stems from that bush. I'm going to hold one off to the side. So now that we've got our 10 stems laying alternatingly into a little swag pile, I'm going to grab a 12-inch zip tie and just run that underneath. And then we're going to cinch these guys all together. And before you cinch it 100%, just make sure all of your florals are tucked into that zip tie. And then cinch that guy basically as tight as you can get it. And then trim off that excess bit of zip tie. So we've just made like a miniature floral swag. Once I do that, friends, I like to take my hot glue gun and just run a couple of stripes of glue right over that zip tie. We'll give it a couple of minutes to dry, and then we'll flip this floral swag over and do the same thing to the back side. Once your floral swag is dry, set that guy off to the side a little bit and bring your bunny base back into your work area. And you're going to grab a standard 12-inch pipe cleaner. I grabbed a brown that matches the Grapevine pretty well, so it blends in nicely. Of course, you could also use a zip tie or a floral wire if that's your preference. And what we're going to do here, guys, is wrap this right around the center of our swag, and then just give it a couple of tight twists so it doesn't go anywhere. It should be right on top of that glue. And then we're going to add this guy to our bunny. So you can add it anywhere you'd like, in the center or off to either side. I'm going to come in here off to the left, and we're going to secure this guy right around that bunny's frame here. And so I'm going to pull that as tight as I can get it and give it 4 or 5 super tight twists. And then I'm just going to trim off the excess bit of my pipe cleaner here. And I'm going to push that little tail right under and out of the way, just like that. So now our floral swag is nice and attached. So it just quickly came together super cute. Now the next thing we need to do is attach our bow. And so we've done the rough fluff. We're going to lay that single button loop off to the side. Grab another matching pipe cleaner and run that right around our bow stack. We're going to cinch it up really tight and give it a couple of twists. And now we're going to layer this right on top of the center of our floral swag, right where that glue is, and attach our bow. So we're going to hold that guy in place, flip it over, and cinch up that pipe cleaner. And again, you could also use floral wire or zip ties if that's your preference. Once you've tightened that and twisted that 4 or 5 times, just go ahead and trim off those excess bits and just push down and tuck away that little tail. All right. Now it's time to fluff out our florals and our bow. So remember, our florals are on a wire stem, which means you can bend them and shape them any way you want. So take a couple of minutes and fluff out your florals. I'm just going to basically bring them to life a little bit, have them going in all different directions. Once you've fluffed out your florals, go ahead and do a final fluff with your bow. And again, I'm just opening loops, waking this bow up. I always start on the bottom, but that's personal preference. You can fluff your bow however you would like. And then that center little button loop is going to go right over the middle, just like that. And then with our tails, I like to take my fingers and just run them up and over those tails to give them a little curve. So I'm basically just pulling them to the ceiling to get some curve. How stinking cute is this guy? Now remember, we had reserved one of our floral stems in case we needed some filler, which I feel like we need some right in here. I'm going to trim this guy in half and then add these 2 pieces in. So I'm going to run some hot glue right there on that stem, about 1 inch or so worth. I'll scooch those tails out of the way. And I'm just poking that right down into the grapevine. And then of course you can bend it a little bit if you'd like to really perk that guy up and give it some life. And just like that, guys, we have made a super cute Easter bunny door hanger in less than 15 minutes. Okay, let's move on to our next design.
Today I'm going to teach you step by step how to make this Easter grapevine wreath. Everything that we used today was provided by TMI Gifts. You'll find a full supplies list below in the description of this video.
As I mentioned earlier, for today's design, we are partnering with TMI Gifts. Thank you, TMI, for the generous gift of all of these lovely supplies. Let me share with you what they've given to us today, friends. We've got a 20-inch round grapevine that we'll be building our wreath on. We've got a black and white plaid metal bunny sign that's about 12 inches in height. How stinking cute is this orange flocked bunny? We've got a couple of stems of cloth carrots, 2 bunches of 22-inch silky wax plants, 4 stems of Salvia picks, and the cutest ribbon ever. Wait till you see this, guys. Look at that. This is going to be adorable.
Go ahead and take a screenshot here, guys. You can get all the items we use in today's tutorial at www.tmigifts.com. Here's the best part, guys. You can enter the code NIKI20, that's NIKI20, when you check out for 20% off your entire order. Okay, let's dive in.
Let me just take a quick moment here to welcome anyone new to the Stillwaters channel. Stillwaters Wreath Designs is all about step-by-step DIY wreath making tutorials. We've got new tutorials uploading every single week. So if you like that sort of thing, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button and join us. All right, guys, so go ahead and plug in your hot glue gun. And you know the first thing we need to do anytime we're building on a grapevine wreath is clean this guy up. I usually refer to that as giving our grapevine a haircut. And so basically what we're going to do is any of these twigs or pieces that are sticking out of our grapevine, we're just going to trim off with our small snips. Just like that. So just take a couple minutes, give your grapevine a haircut, make sure you flip it over once you're finished and do the same thing to the back. And then we'll start creating. Just a quick pro tip about your grapevines. Once you get them cleaned up, I get a lot of questions about how to decide what is the front facing part of your grapevine wreath and what is the door facing. I basically just take a look at my grapevine, friends, and whichever side is the flattest is what I choose to be the back of the wreath, because I know it's going to rest nicely up against my or my customer's door. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is attach our metal bunny into the wreath, and I think we're going to place this guy right in the middle. So let me tell you a little bit about my vision. I'm going to place our bunny in the middle and have a floral spray in the bottom right hand corner and a floral spray in the upper left hand corner, which will include our carrots, and then a bow in the center of both of those sprays. And so when we anchor this guy down, he's metal, guys, and so using hot glue of any kind isn't going to hold him in. It's going to pick off the back of our bunny. There's actually a really handy hanger on the back of this bunny that we could run some floral wire through if we were going to place him off to the side like that. But because we're going to place him in the middle, I'm actually going to use my jewelry hole punch and punch a small hole in his ear and his foot so that we can then run some wire through there and just anchor him down into our wreath. So I've just grabbed 2 20-gauge floral wire stems and my jewelry hole punch. This is what it looks like, guys. It's just got a teeny tiny punch, and I'm just going to punch a quick hole in his foot and then also in his ear. I'm about a 1/2 inch in from the edge just to make sure that that stays nice and strong. If you don't have a jewelry hole punch, they're pretty inexpensive. I'll leave a link for you below. And now I'm going to take my floral wire stem. Forgive my finger here, friends. I'm nursing an injury. I'm just going to fold that guy in half loosely into a V just to identify that center point. And I'm going to run that right through that hole that we just made in his foot. And then on the back side of that foot, I'm just going to give that floral wire stem a twist or two just to keep it from sliding around. And once you've got that secured, you're just going to take those floral wire stems and run them through your grapevine, not around. Nobody wants to see your floral wire stems. So I'm just going to run those through the grapevine. And then I'm going to flip that guy over to the back. It's okay that it's floppy. And just give those floral wire stems a couple of loose twists just to hold that guy in place. It's a little bit floppy for this part. Just give yourself some grace. And we want this guy centered. So I'm going to do the same thing with my second stem. I folded it into a loose V. I'm going to run that right through the hole that we made on our bunny friend's ear. And then give that a loose twist or two on the back. And then run that guy right through our grapevine. Make sure we've got that guy where we want it. So he's fairly centered and sitting nicely on our wreath. So now we can flip it over one more time. So I'm just twisting those floral wire stems 4 or 5 times at about 80% tension. You want your bunny to be nice and secure, but you don't want it so tight that it's going to damage your grapevine. Once you get those floral wire stems twisted, go ahead and trim off those excess bits of floral wire stem. Then I'm just going to grab my needle nose pliers and curl those floral wire stem ends back into the wreath. That way, if somebody happens to grab it right there, they aren't going to get poked. And then I like to run just a little pea-sized amount of hot glue right over that floral wire stem just to help ensure that there's no sharp ends. We'll give that about a minute to dry, and then we'll turn our wreath over and start designing. Now that we've got our bunny nice and attached to the grapevine, let's go ahead and make our 2 bows. So we'll set this guy off to the side. So I've just grabbed my 3 ribbon types. I'm going to put the black and white check on the lowest level, the orange and white polka dot in the middle, and then our super cute bunnies on the top. And then I've grabbed 2 12-inch pipe cleaners and 2 12-inch zip ties. Because I'm nursing an injury, friends, I'm going to use my bow dabra today, and we're going to make 2 identical bows. So we'll make the first one together, and then we'll speed ahead. Friends, if you are new to wreath making or bow making and still struggle, the bow dabra is a great tool to help you with that. I'll leave a link for this below for you. And the first thing we need to do is just take our pipe cleaner and run that right down the center of our bow dabra, and then tuck those ends underneath so that they're out of the way. You could also use floral wire if you prefer. All right, we're going to start out with the black and white check. You guys, TMI Gifts has a ton of beautiful ribbon, wreath attachments and signs, florals, all the things. Don't forget that website will be listed for you below so that you can check out their website and do some shopping. So when I'm making my bows, guys, I always make my tails a little bit longer than what I think I'll need. You can always trim your ribbon down if you need to, but you can't add any more on. So I like to err on the side of caution. So I'm going to make 10-inch tails. Now that I've identified my 10-inch mark, I'm just using my self-healing mat here in the background so that I can get some quick measurements. I've pinched off that 10-inch spot. I'm going to give that a hard twist because we always want the pretty side of our ribbon to be facing up. So I've twisted it and just ran that right down the center of the bow dabra. And I want 5-inch loops. So I need to come out to the 10-inch mark because once I fold that ribbon in, it's going to become a 5-inch loop. So I've identified that 10-inch mark. I'm just pinching my ribbon. I don't know if you can tell, friends, but this ribbon's got a really pretty glitter to it. It's just stunning. And I'm going to give that a hard twist and lay that down into the Bodabra. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. For our second loop, we're going to have 2 loops and 2 tails of every single ribbon type. So I'm going to come out to that 10-inch mark. I've pinched right where that 10-inch mark is, and I'm going to run that down the center of my Bodabra. To double check your loops to make sure they're the same length, you can just fold them up onto one another here, and you can see that they're marrying at the same spot, so you know your loops are the same size. And again, we want a 10-inch tail. So I'm going to find that 10-inch mark and cut the ribbon off. Next up, we're going to use this orange with black polka dots. Those polka dots are actually velvet. How pretty is that?
Go ahead and repeat the same process with the next 2 ribbon types, stacking them right on top of the first ribbon, and then we'll tie off our bow.
And now this bow is finished, so we need to tie it off. I'm going to pull those pipe cleaners out from underneath our Bodabra, carefully pull up on that ribbon stack. I'm going to wrap that pipe cleaner right around our bow stack, come around to the back side, and cinch that guy as tight as I can get it, and spin that around 4 or 5 times to make sure that guy is nice and secure. Then we'll just cut off the excess bits of our pipe cleaner because we don't need those. I'm going to set this bow stack off to the side and create one exactly like this, and then I'll meet you back here. Okay, friends, we've got 2 identical bow stacks. We've dovetailed the ends. All right, let's go ahead and get our bows added into our wreath. So we'll add the lower bow here in the bottom right hand corner, and we're going to use the zip tie to secure this guy. So I'm just going to go around. Now, just like the floral wire, guys, we want to run our zip tie through the grapevine and not around, because nobody wants to see that. So I'm going to hold that where I want it and run that grapevine right through there. Just take your time and weave that up through. You basically want it to come in right underneath that pipe cleaner or floral wire, whatever you used. And then you're just going to push it right back through on the other side. And then flip that around, run that zip tie, and then just cinch that guy up. I always leave it a little bit flexible and flip it one more time just to make sure that didn't move on me, and it didn't. Now that I know that we're good, I'm going to zip it down tight, and then I'll take my snips and trim off that excess bit of zip tie. Super cute. Now we're going to do the same thing with our second bow. We'll be adding this to the upper left-hand corner. So let's run our zip tie through and secure our upper bow as well. You guys, this is coming together. So what I like to do at this point, friends, is do just a rough fluff of the bow. And remember, we've got 6 loops in total, 2 of each of the 3 ribbon types. And all I'm going to do, starting on that lower level, is just pull those tails down and to the side, so they kind of are like a fan. And then I'm going to open up those loops and spread those guys out. So I'm going to make an X pattern with those lower 2 loops, as you can see here. And then we'll just open up our bunny loops, just like that. You don't need to get super fancy right now, guys. We're going to add some florals in here and do some more fluffing as we go. But we won't really finish fluffing our bow or working with our tails until we're done adding the florals. This is just our initial or rough fluff, so it should look something like this. Then we're going to do the same thing to our top bow. So I think for now I'm just going to fold those in half and kind of tuck them under while we work with our florals. If you're new to the channel, friends, and you've not yet seen me create a grapevine wreath, you'll discover that what I do to the bottom, I do to the top, but this is certainly your personal preference. I'm going to start out with our silky wax florals. This is actually a bunch of 3. TMI gave us 2 bunches of these beauties, and so I've just pulled them apart and I'm fluffing it out. By fluffing it out, I'm just waking it up, spreading them apart, and then I'm going to trim my stem. So what we're going to do, guys, is tuck our floral right into the grapevine and then add some glue on top of it to keep that guy secure. And so you want, I would say a 2 to 3 inch stem, but the rest of that needs to be trimmed away. I'm going to use my heavy duty cutters for that trimming, just like that. And so we're going to tuck that guy in where we want it. Just get it a nice good weave there. And then take a dollop of glue and run that right, a full squirt or 2 right on top of where you've anchored that floral in. And remember, these are on a wire spine, so you can bend them and shape them how you wish. We'll work with that in just a little bit. Now we're going to do the same thing on the lower level. So I'm going to trim my stem. So we're just fluffing that guy out however you'd like. And we're going to anchor this guy in. So I'm just lifting up those loops. And we've placed that stem in. We'll add a dollop of glue, a full squirt. How stinking cute is that? Now remember, there's actually 3 bunches of these. We are going to use that. I'll show you what we'll do with that in just a short bit. And so what we do to the bottom, we're going to do to the top. So I'm going to trim down my stems to leave me a couple, 2 or 3 inches to work with. There we go. We're going to fluff these guys out so you can pull them from side to side, up and down. You want them to have lots of dimension. Don't leave them just flat. So really work with those guys. Make them go in the direction that you want them to. And we're just going to tuck that guy in up at the top, right underneath our bows. And we'll add a dollop of glue. A full squeeze is usually what I use. And then we're going to fluff our second stem, wake that guy up. You guys, this is turning out so cute. All right, now that we've got that all fluffed up, let's go ahead and secure that guy in. Just lifting my loops here and running that stem in. So you can see I've got this nice line for both the upper and the lower. How cute. So now we're going to do the same thing with our salvia picks. So I've just trimmed off that sticker. I'm just going to fluff those out. And again, they're on a wire spine, so you can bend them and shape them as you wish. I'll probably bend them more once we get in. I'm going to trim my stem down. And I'm going to lift up the wax plant and run that guy kind of right underneath. We're going to pull these leaves and stems. We're going to interweave them once that glue dries. So it's just a pretty marry of the two greenery stems. This is going to be such a cute Easter, full of spring vibes. I don't know about y'all, but I am ready for spring. And all the things. So I'm just fluffing it up a little bit again. Gonna trim off that stem, so I've got just a couple inches there. I'm gonna lift up my greenery here, kind of part the C's, and run that stem right down in there. And give that a full squirt of glue right on top, so that guy can anchor in. And we're gonna do the same thing at the top. So while that upper set of greenery stems is finishing to dry, I'm going to come down here to my lower, and I'm just interweaving the two different types of greenery here so that it's coming over and under and around and all the things, and it looks like one harmonious bit of beauty. And we're going to do the same thing to all four greenery corners here. You guys, how stinking cute is this coming along? Definitely gonna have to give those tails a trim, but not until the end. All right, so now we've got our two carrot bunches that we're going to add in, and so they're actually on a single stem, so you could add them together if you wanted. I'm gonna actually separate them with my big heavy duty cutters, leaving them about a 2-inch stem. And I'm going to do that to both of my carrot bunches here. So what I'm going to do here, guys, is just take a carrot, a single carrot, and I'm going to add them right between our bow loops and our ribbon tails. And these are on wire spines. Of course, you can't bend the carrot, but you can bend the stem that it's on if you need to do so. So I actually bent that a little too much. So just like before, guys, run that down into your greenery and then give it a squirt of glue. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side with my orange carrot. And add your squirt of glue. And we're going to do the same thing on the upper level. I'm just going to go opposites. I've got my buffalo check to the left of our lower bow and the orange to the right. So at the top, I'm going to go just the opposite. And we'll add the orange here and the buffalo check there. So we're going to leave those carrots alone for a few minutes and let our glue get nice and dry. And while that's drying, guys, we're going to actually trim down our wax stem. So remember, we've got 2 left. So I've just separated them out, and we've got 5 stems on this bush. So I'm going to trim those guys right off. And we're just going to make a little pile off to the side. And we're going to do that to both bushes. So we'll end up having 10 pieces of individual wax plant stems to add into our wreath. So I've separated them out, trim all those guys down, and put them off to the side. So we've got 10 in total. We're going to disperse 5 amongst our lower floral area and 5 amongst the upper. So let's start with the lower. We're going to refluff our bow. So I'm just opening those loops up. Remember, we made the X pattern, and then our bunnies are going across the center. And I'm going to run my finger over those tails. I'm pulling them straight to the ceiling and kind of curving it around my finger to give those tails a cute little curl. Just like that. So once you refluffed your bow and gave some curl to your tails, feel free to trim them down if you'd like. It's totally up to you. Now we're going to disperse our 5 single stems throughout our lower level. So if you've got any gaps in the upper or the lower, you can use your single stems to add in. If you want to add a few bits to the bottom, which is something I'm going to do, you can do that as well. So I'm just going to run a bead of glue right along the stem and poke this down in just to help fill that in a little bit. All right, so I've just used 2 pieces down below. Now I'm going to use 2 pieces within my bow. So I'm going to weave this in right between my bunny loops and the other 2. You're going to have to kind of part the C's here a little bit to find an opening. And then just run a bead of glue right there on your stem. I've got about an inch or so on this stem. And then we'll do the same on the other side. You know, this guy is so stinking cute. So I've got one left. I think I'll just put a little bit of glue on here and add that right to this bottom portion. And then we're going to repeat those same steps on our upper greenery area. So I'm going to just spin this guy upside down. I'll run a little bit of glue on that stem and add that into our grapevine. Okay, guys, we've got 2 more pieces. Let me uncurl those tails, which are going to need a serious haircut. Get our loops refluffed. By now our carrots are mostly set. We will add these guys down in. And again, I'm going to put those right underneath the bunny bows, just to bring some of that greenery up and into our bow. Just give a little bit of life. You guys, oh my goodness. I cannot love this enough. You know how if you're a wreath creator and you sell them, there are those wreaths that you sometimes have a hard time selling, you just want to keep for yourself. I believe that's going to be the case for me with this guy. Let's give these tails a trim. Now, even though when it's obvious that you need to trim your tails, I still remind you just to trim gently, because you can always continue to trim and take more off, but you can't put more on if you trim too short. We're going to have to take a couple inches off here. Now we're coming together. So I'm going to use my cardboard insert here and just kind of curl those guys a little bit. Just using a cardboard insert from some Deco mesh to give some sass to our ribbon here. And this beauty is finished. Oh my goodness, how stinking cute. I'll be sure to leave the TMI Gifts website for you below. Don't forget to enter the code Nikki, N-I-K-I 20. When you check out, you'll get 20% off your entire order. And that code is good through all of February 2024. Okay, let's move on to the next design.
Today I'm going to teach you step by step how to make this flocked bunny wreath door swag.
You'll find a full materials and supplies list for you below in the description of this video. Okay, let's dive in. So today we're going to make our door swag on a 26-inch pine swag base. And if you're not familiar with pine swag bases, they basically look like an upside down Christmas tree. They've got a nice little hanger at the top for you or your customer to hang it on your door, and I've already fluffed it out, but you can see it's flat on the back. And the first thing we need to do for today's design is stuff our swag base with our Deco mesh Cruffles. So we're going to scoot that guy out of the way, and we'll be using this 10-inch Deco mesh that's just a pretty lime green, pink, and white with metallic striping. And there's really no hard and fast number on how many pieces we'll need for our swag, guys. It just depends on how closely you stuff your Deco mesh pieces together. I usually start out with 14 pieces of Deco mesh, and then we can add in as we need to. So we're going to cut out 14 pieces of this pretty Deco mesh at 24 inches in length. So if you're new to wreath making, I'll be cutting my mesh with a rotary cutter. This is basically like a mini pizza cutter, and it lets you cut your Deco mesh with nice, clean, quick lines. And then what you see in the background here, guys, this is called a self-healing mat. So it serves a couple of purposes. It lets you cut directly on it without dulling your blades or harming your work area. And it's also got measurements so that you can measure as you go. I'll leave a link for both of these tools below. If you don't have a rotary cutter and self-healing mat, feel free to just use your ruler and a good pair of scissors. And again, we're going to start out with 14 pieces cut at 24 inches in length, and then I'll meet you back here. Once you've got your Deco mesh pieces cut, go ahead and grab your pine swag base and bring it back to your work area. I would also recommend a chip clip or a clothespin for this next step. And we're going to make Cruffles to add into our pine base. If you're new to working with Deco mesh loves to fray. So anything that we can do as a creator to help reduce that fray is always ideal. And the Cruffle method is a great way to do that. So what we're going to do is grab a single piece of Deco mesh, and we're going to lay it in our work area, curl side up. I like to grab something a little heavy and lay in the middle of my mesh here just to keep it from rolling in on itself. And what we're going to do at one end is curl that end in 2 or 3 times. And what that does is tuck away the raw edge of our Deco mesh to help reduce that fray. Once you get that curled in a couple, 2 or 3 times, go ahead and secure that with your clip, and then just spin your Deco mesh piece around. And we're going to do the same thing at the other end. Give that 2 or 3 rolls or curls. Once you've done that, now we're going to use our 2 thumbs to press down on that Deco mesh, and then use our other 8 fingers, or in my case 7, I'm nursing an injury, to walk that mesh back into our hands all the way to the end. Then you can release that clip and just pinch this Cruffle right in the middle. And basically what a Cruffle is, friends, is curls on the end and a ruffle in the middle, hence the Cruffle. Once you've got that Cruffle pinched between your fingers, go ahead and come to your swag. We're going to start at the top of our pine swag base, which the top is the widest part, and we're going to find 2 neighboring pine ties. These are called pine ties. At the top of our base, take that Cruffle, press that all the way down to the center of those 2 neighboring pine ties, and then give those pine ties a couple of tight twists to secure that Cruffle in, just like that. We're going to add Cruffles all the way down our swag base, and then we'll come all the way back up so that our base is nice and full. Let's do one more together, and then we'll speed ahead. So we're going to grab a piece of Deco mesh, lay that curl side up in our work area. We'll place something heavy on that piece of mesh to keep it from curling up. We're going to roll the end 2 or 3 times to tuck away that raw edge and secure it with our clip. We'll then spin that guy around and we'll roll the other end 2 or 3 times as well. And then we're just going to hold that mesh in place with our thumbs and use our remaining fingers to crawl that mesh back into our hand to create that cruffle. Then we can release that clip, pinch that guy in the middle, come back to your spike base, and come immediately below the cruffle we just added in. Find 2 neighboring pine ties, place that cruffle all the way down to the base of those ties. Give those pine ties a couple of tight twists, and we've just added our second cruffle. Go ahead and add your cruffles throughout your entire pine base, coming down one side and then going back up the other. If you need additional pieces, feel free to continue to cut them and make this as full as you wish, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, I've got my pine base full of our Deco mesh cruffles, and I did end up using the 14 pieces, and look how much dimension it gives our base. So stinking cute. Go ahead and plug in your hot glue gun. So while our glue gun heats up, we're going to make 2 ribbon tail bundles. And we're going to use 5 different colors of Easter springy ribbon. I've got 2 2.5 inch ribbons and 3 1.5 inch ribbons. Just grab 5 different ribbon types that match your design and are wired. Okay guys, we're going to make 2 ribbon tail clusters, and we're going to use 1 piece of ribbon of each of the ribbon types for each cluster. So when we cut our ribbon, we'll need 2 pieces of each, cut at 12 inches in length. Once you get those ribbon strips cut, now we need to trim our ends. You can either angle trim the end, meaning your scissors come down about 1 inch and then cut up diagonally to the corner, or you can dovetail. I'm going to dovetail my ribbon, and so 1 strip at a time to dovetail. We're going to fold our ribbon strip in half, and then we're going to fold that half in half again in the opposite direction. Then grab your scissors, come down about 3/4 of an inch and cut up diagonally to the corner. And then when you open that ribbon tail, you can see you've got that nice pretty V, which is called a dovetail. And by folding it in half, we've done both ends at once. So go ahead and trim the ends of your ribbon strips, and I'll meet you back here. All right, once you've got those tails trimmed, go ahead and grab a single pipe cleaner that matches in some way to your ribbon strips. Fold that guy in half to give yourself 2. And to make our ribbon tail clusters, friends, I always start with my 2.5 inch ribbon on the bottom. We'll reserve that for our second one. And we're just gonna layer these guys into an X. We've got 5 different ribbons, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Once you've got that ribbon X made, take your fingers and just kind of scrunch those guys together. It can be a little tricky if your ribbon is stiff, that's okay. Now you're going to take one of your pipe cleaner halves and just fold that guy into a V. And we're basically just going to wrap that right around the center. Then spin that over to the back side. Then we're going to give this pipe cleaner 3 or 4 super duper as tight as we can get it twist. Tight, tight, tight. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and trim off that excess bit of pipe cleaner. And we've just made the base for our ribbon tail cluster. And all I do at this point, guys, is just kind of separate them out. That's it, nothing to it. So it goes from being an X to kind of a sloppy ribbon tail assortment. And then once we get that into our base, we're going to fluff those tails out by just running our fingers over those tails one at a time. I just hang on to the center, put that ribbon tail between my fingers, pull it straight up to the ceiling, and curve. And we do that for every single tail, which just really gives that ribbon tail cluster all kinds of height and whimsy. This is also a great option for those of you that struggle with making bows. I know that was probably the hardest thing for me to learn when I started wreath making. So it's going to look something like this. And then once we get this into our swag, we'll fluff it out a little bit more. But this is basically how we make a ribbon tail cluster. Okay, let's move on to the next. Okay, so now we've made our ribbon tail clusters. We can bring our swag back into our work area. It's time to add our bunny. So what I'm going to do, guys, is just kind of part the C's here on my swag. For any of those pine ties that are pointing straight up, I want them to lay off to the side a bit here in the center, just like that. And I'm going to push that deco mesh a little bit too, just to kind of create a spot for our bunny to lay. So this is what our bunny looks like, guys. I've already made a cute little bow that I've attached and hot glued around his neck, and he's going to nestle right here in our swag. So these guys are actually super lightweight. I'm just going to drench this guy with hot glue and press him in. Basically here on his torso, I'm going to say probably 10 or so full squirts. And this is Gorilla Glue. It's my preferred hot glue. And then we're going to nestle him right there in our swag and press down on him for about 30 seconds. All right, I'm going to lay my cutters on him just to give him a little bit of weight, because the next step will be to add in our 2 ribbon tail clusters. I'm going to add one below our bunny and one above. So for the one above, I'm going to just turn this guy to an angle here. We're going to actually use, again, 2 pine ties to secure this guy in, but they go pretty deep, and we don't want our ribbon tail cluster to recede all the way to the center spine of our swag, because it'll get lost in the shuffle. So we're going to make a false bottom here with a couple of neighboring pine ties. So all I'm doing is making an X and then giving that a couple of twists, which is giving that new false bottom. I'm going to lay this ribbon tail cluster right in the center of that false bottom and give those guys a twist. And then I'm going to take that little bit of a nub there and just kind of tuck it back in. I'm going to take a second here and just run my fingers back over those tails to fluff them out. They got a little beaten up in the midst of our adding here. All right, and now we're going to add our second ribbon tail cluster below our bunny. Once you have that anchored down in, refluff those ribbon tails. How stinking cute is this guy coming along to be? Okay, so next up we're going to add some florals. I have actually grabbed 2 of these Easter floral picks. They're just like pit berries, if that's capturing that for you. So we've got some pink, purple, and yellow on this pretty pale lime green base. And we're going to add these pieces directly into our swag. And so let's just look at one at a time here. If you kind of pull on these guys, there's several different stems here on this bush, and you can break them down into as many pieces as you want. So you could simply cut off each of these 4 major stems. You could cut them off individually, whatever you want to do. These actually came from Hobby Lobby. If you are new to my channel, you'll soon learn that Hobby Lobby is probably my most preferred supplier for florals. I'm not sponsored by them. They just really have the best quality in my experience. And you'll also soon learn that florals can be the most expensive part of anything that you create. So just a little pro tip for you, Hobby Lobby has all of their florals on sale for 40% off every other week. So make sure when you're getting ready to do your designs that you're paying attention to those sales so you can get the most bang for your buck. All right, so what I'm going to do, I want my pieces to be essentially this size. So I'm going to go through both of my bushes and trim them down. I'm guessing I'll get 5 to 6 bunches approximately of that size. I'm just going to cut them here at the base until I've got them all cut, and then I'll meet you back here. Now that we've got all of our cute little picks separated out and trimmed down, it's time to add them into our swag. My preference is to dry place them first, so I literally just take my picks, add them all the way around the swag with no glue first, and just make sure I'm happy with that placement, and then I come back in with my glue. So I'm going to kind of frame both of my ribbon tail clusters first, and then I'll come back in with the extra pieces. You can certainly add them in how you wish. So take a few minutes, get those added into your swag, and then I'll meet you back here. All right, guys, we've got our base of florals added in, and so now I have a handful, probably 10 or so, of single individual picks that came from those bushes. So now I'm going to sprinkle those throughout the rest of my swag. I'm not going to dry place those since we've got our base in. So again, just find the spots for all of your pretties, add a bead of hot glue, and anchor them in. How stinking cute is that? Now let's tie this beauty all together. I've grabbed a leftover stem of variegated pink and blush florals. It's got some nice greenery as well. And we're going to add that into our swag. So if you're not familiar with greenery, it's typically on a wire spine, so you can bend and twist that as you wish. We're going to shove those greenery bits up and then come down about 2 inches or so below that last bit of greenery and trim it off. Just like we did before, friends, I'm going to dry place these in. I want to sprinkle them out a little bit, and I'd like for this hot pink to be right underneath our bunny. Now, because this is on a wire stem, you can bend them as you need to so that they'll sit just the way you want down into your swag. So let's go ahead and dry place our florals in, and then we'll hot glue them down. And that is it, friends. Oh my goodness, how stinking cute did this swag turn out to be? I sure hope you enjoyed creating with me today. If you did, be sure to give this tutorial a thumbs up. It really helps my little channel to grow. Thanks for spending time with me today, friends. Happy crafting.